Well, good morning, everyone. It is beautiful out on this October morning, and a fall morning is the perfect time to transplant and in some cases divide perennials to move into another part of the garden. So right here, Stuart, if you don't mind showing what I've got going here, I have a fairly large specimen. It's a Rudbeckia maxima. I got it at Bustani Plant Farm in Stillwater, Oklahoma a few years ago, and it's really too contained in this spot. It needs a little bit more room to grow. It doesn't flower as well as I would like here in this area because it probably doesn't get quite enough sun. So I'm going to move it. And what I have done is, you saw me watering this hole. And the time of year, i.e. fall, the reason it is so good for doing this is because the temperatures are cool, and once it gets into its new spot, it won't be too hot and too stressed as it would be in the summer heat. So it has a chance to put out really good root growth before the heat of next year arrives, because in Oklahoma, and I really think in the South in general, there are two seasons. There's before the heat and there's after the heat. So what I'm doing, and by the way, I am using this perennial small-headed shovel because it really gets into these tight spaces. And for me, it's just a little bit easier to use. And I am just trying to get as big a root ball as I can without disturbing some of the plants around it. Now this has been here for a while, so it is pretty well established, but this is also a tough plant. And I believe it's Rudbeckia maxima. Some of you, if I give you the name and it's not the exact variety, or it's a similar variety, then most of the plants that I have in my garden, the perennials anyway, have been gifted to me. And I'm just going by the names of what I was told that they are. So if I'm sometimes not exactly on spot, that is why. And it's also because I guess I look at things more from a designer lens necessarily than a gardening lens. So I'm more interested, I think, in the size and the form and the shape of the plant maybe than its botanical heritage. So I've got two blobs here. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to transplant it over here in this border, and I'll probably take the other mound and put it on the other end. Sometimes it's difficult to get really good symmetry in a garden bed that doesn't have symmetrical light. In other words, one side gets better light than the other, but I can kind of fake it a little bit. So while I go and get my shovel and my other mound, I'll let Stuart show you some of the other gray-leaved plants that I have in here that have a little bit smaller leaf size or a different texture. So this is a member, as I told you earlier, of the, and now I can't think of it, the spiderwort family. This is some Chef's Choice rosemary. That is a Bambino pineapple guava. So I've got this kind of gray theme going here along with some of that, that sedum. So you can kind of see how it will fit into the entire composition here. And when it blooms, it will bloom tall yellow flowers that I think will be beautiful in this montage of colors over here. So let me get my shovel. I'm going to get my hose too. Hubs just gave me a heads up. He put something together and he's very proud of himself. So he had to give me a heads up that he got it finished. So this area I'm going to water too. My good old Oklahoma clay. I'll water that root ball a little bit as well. Now what I'm going to do is good best practices when you're transplanting something from one area of the garden, or you're transplanting, or rather planting a new plant. And that is that I'm going to try to dig a hole that is approximately 2.5 times the root ball that I'm transplanting. Now this also has a few hitchhiking salvia plants in here, but that's okay, I don't mind. I'm gonna let them move right along with the rudbeckia. So in here, and I might come across some iris tubers as I do this. If so, I don't really mind, because I'm not sure that's where I want them to be. So I'm digging a hole that's 2.5 times approximately the root ball of the plant. You can always go bigger, you guys. The bigger the hole, the looser the soil, the better. But in my tight spaces, in my very established garden, sometimes I just have to do the best that I can. And you'll see there's a little bit of gravel in here. Stuart, if you can kind of show the quality of the soil in here. It's not terrible, but it's not great. If it were drier, you could see that there's a good bit of clay soil in here. And clay soil just doesn't really have the friability or the looseness that most plants want when they're trying to get established and push their roots through the soil. It'd be like you trying to put your fist through a brick wall. And sometimes our clay soil is almost like that. Now, I'm not really so concerned about the depth, because I'm going to plant this at the same soil level as it was growing. But I am digging a little bit deeper because I just want to loosen up the soil at the bottom of this hole so that it can really penetrate and establish a deep root system. So now let me see where I am. Okay, so that's going to sit too deeply. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put some of this soil back in. Ooh, look at that big old fat worm there, Stuart. Look at that. I don't think I've chopped him in half. Oh, look at him coming out of that hole. Doesn't that just make you happy? Okay, now I'm going to ask Stuart to back up a little bit, because I'm going to amend this soil with some of this Happy Grow Landscapers mix. So Stuart, if you could show this bag, because I get this question all of the time. It is, again, called Happy Grow Landscaper Mix. I get it at Lowe's, and hopefully your Lowe's will carry it. I know sometimes in other parts of the country, it might be called something different. There might be another similar brand, but you can always ask. And if Lowe's doesn't have it, then I'm sure your better nurseries will. So Stuart, let me show them kind of close up. It's like a fine pine mulch. So you can see immediately from its texture how it will improve the texture and the airability of the soil. So I'm going to take some of this and I'm just going to throw it in there. And this will raise up that soil level a little bit. So I'm gonna, it'll approximately be, I'm amending this with in terms of the soil quantity that I took out. This will make up about half of that soil. Now I'm also going to add, and I'll put a link below, I'm going to add a little bit of organic biotone starter. It's a starter plant food. It will tell you exactly on the back how much to incorporate, and I know roughly how much I want to incorporate. I'm going to put that in that Happy Grow landscaper mix. Now you guys, if you don't have any of this Happy Grow mix, then by all means, just use some of your own homemade compost. You can use a good quality bagged compost. Maybe your soil is so good that you don't really need to add anything, but of course I do. Got that good old Oklahoma clay. So, ooh, it smells good because I'm working near that lavender. So you can see that it's going to be planted at about the same level as it was growing previously. And you can see that my hole on this side and that side is about 2.5 times the root ball. I don't want to plant it too deeply. Now I'm going to take the topsoil that was here, loosen it up a bit. I am going to apply some pressure around the base because I don't want there to be any air pockets in there. And then probably I'll come back and trim it up a bit with my scissors. But see the beautiful textural contrast and the size of the leaf contrast? That's really, I think, going to be very pretty. And I don't worry too much about breaking off any of that Tradescantia because it will just re-root or just come back just fine. Now, I'm going to do one more thing. And I'm going to mulch it in some of this same landscaper's mix that will help retain moisture. One of the reasons I like it is see how when I toss it, it just is so fine that it kind of falls in between the leaves. And that makes it easy to apply as a mulch. So then if Stuart will get off of my hose, thank you, Stuart. I'm just going to water it in really well. And the nice thing about also planting in the fall is that the temperatures are cooler. It's not going to be so hot that I need to babysit this every single day to make sure that it stays moist. This is going to get established really nicely. While I'm over here, I'll give these other guys. This is one of those beautiful Silverata sage topiaries I was telling you about. And that should do pretty well. So if it does turn hot again, if we do have some more Indian summer left in us, and if it gets really hot, then I'll just make sure that that stays hydrated. I'll take the other mound of it and I may divide it in two, but some of it is going to end up on that side, and then it's going to be really beautiful, I think, when these gold flowery shoots come out of this on very long stems at the end of next summer. So there you go. That is how you transplant a Rudbeckia from one part of your garden to another part.